Tonight, I am talking with a veteran in the comedy industry. You may have seen him on his DVDs. I've got a funny feeling about this, and Breaking Bob, the rock show comedy tour with Tim Hawkins. You may have heard him on the Potty Break podcast with Tim Hawkins. Rest in peace, Potty Break podcast. And on his current podcast, Hook, Line, and Smiley, we are talking today to the great Bob Smiley. Hello.
What's going on?
What's going on, Bob?
Man, living the quarantine dream.
What is the quarantine dream like in Texas, where it's like 88 degrees in the middle of January?
It's well, it sounded like I was at the beach just a second ago, but it was because I was at the gym and I realized that everybody's breathing heavy, so it sounds like waves crashing in, and like it's insane, man. And actually, I was thinking this might even be a good bit, but I was walking around the gym, and of course, I go to 24-Hour Fitness, not a sponsor, and it was funny watching people that are just like muscle heads trying to determine what 6 feet is from people as they were walking around. It was like, oh my goodness, this is so great. But
is the gym the most healthy place to be in the middle of a quarantine? I mean, like, slinging sweat from one weight bench to the other. I mean, is that really?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm going to say it is, because when I first went, they shut it down for a while, and then we were like, oh, we're Texas. What are we doing? And so
that's the Republic.
We got back. Yeah. Like, we make our own rules. And so I went in, but what they've done is they put these hand sanitizer machines around everywhere. So literally, like, I'm cleaner than if I would have stayed home, because I wouldn't wash my hands. So I feel like I'm healthier, in more ways than one going to the gym, because my hands are, as clean as they've ever been.
Is Sarah with you tonight, or is she like cooking dinner and that's why she wanted to know the time limit to know when the tacos are ready?
Yeah, she's cooking dinner, and I had to squeeze in a gym time, and with all the kids pick up and all that stuff, she was like, okay, but you got to be home like 6:05. I'm serving a meal.
Okay, so we'll get you out of here in time for dinner.
Okay.
All right, so let me just ask the basic general questions that every interviewer asks the interviewee, and then we'll get into some more interesting things.
Okay, yes, my last name really is Smiley. I started comedy in college. I did a stand-up competition and won. Yeah, I've been asked them all. No, go ahead with your questions. Let me see if you got some new ones.
Yeah, so how long have you been doing comedy?
24 years now. I'd have to go back and yeah, I've got all my hotel shampoo collections, by year, so I'd have to go back and look, but I think 24 years.
Wow, so I was 6 when you started doing comedy, so awesome.
That's my demographic still. Like, I go after there, because booger jokes are easy to write.
Did you do anything before comedy?
Yes, actually, I really did do a stand-up competition in college, but I really only did it for the money. I never thought comedy was what I was going to do. I was going to be a teacher, but before I graduated, got my degree, before I became a teacher, I wanted to see what it was like to make money. And so I realized that teaching wasn't going to do it, but that was, I felt like that was my calling. So, and I picked elementary for 2 reasons. One, I saw a lot of kids growing up without a strong male role model. And so I really did think that, maybe God could use me to be, kind of an influence for kids. And I also picked elementary because the classes were easy in college. Like, I already knew the alphabet. I had 2 roommates. One of them was pre-med and one of them was a missionary, like he was a mission major. And so he was learning Greek, and the pre-med guy was taking zoology, and we were studying for our finals, and they were just like cramming like crazy. And they looked over in the living room, and I was making a bulletin board, and they were like, man, Smiley. I was like, this is hard. I have to cut and paste, it's.
What does zoology have anything to do with medicine, though?
I think you get stressed out being a doctor, and so you want to relax. And I think going to the zoo, you can look at the animals, and I don't know. I didn't pay attention. I had a hard time with that bulletin board.
This guy was preparing for therapy animals before there was such a thing.
Yeah, that's right. He was ahead of his time. But yeah, so I graduated. I really wanted to start with. I'm a very anti-debt type person, and so I wanted to start with a little bit of money, and then be able to pick where, the teaching place that I was going to land. I didn't want it to be based off money. So we had a family friend that was a photographer, and I'd worked the summers with him. And so he hired me the first year out of college. And so I did photography for that first year. And then I was driving in Dallas, Texas, and I just realized it's going to tell everybody how old I am. But my pager went off. I made that kind of money. And so I pulled over to a Cracker Barrel payphone, and I called the number on the page. And it was a Nashville number, but I didn't even know that. I thought it was somebody that was, interested in photography. And he was like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we were friends in college. I'm now road managing a guy named Clay Cross, and we leave for tour in 2 weeks. And we just had a meeting, and Clay said it'd be fun to have a comedian come out. I've got to hire a guy to do all the merchandise on the tour, so we have money to pay you. But I saw you do the stand-up competition in college and thought you were clean and funny, and I literally did that one competition just for the cash prize, because it was $500, which I was in Abilene, Texas, so $500 is like 4 months rent, and so I did it for that. I remember standing outside that Cracker Barrel payphone. I had this weird offer. I had no idea God was about to change my life. And he goes, "So do you want to go on tour?" And I was really kind of flippant about it, because I never thought about being a comedian, never thought I could do it. And I was like, "How long's the tour?" And he said, "Well, it's 6 weeks, but it's probably going to stretch into 8. And I remember going, "Yeah, okay, that sounds fun." And not realizing it was about to change my life. And so I booked a one-way ticket to Nashville. I got off a plane, got on a tour bus, and went out as a working comedian on the Clay Cross tour, which is not how you do it. That's not. I actually have kids. Kids will come up to me after the show. I do all clean comedy. So, families come, and I'll have kids come up and be like, "How do I become a comedian?" And I'm always like, do a stand-up competition your junior year in college and wait for somebody to call you. Like, I have no good advice at all how to get into it.
So I love how you said that, you didn't want to teach for the money, but I find it funny that your 24-year career that you went into for the money. And now here we are in 2021 now, at the end of what has not been a moneymaker at all for anybody, especially guys that are in ministry, because we all go into ministry for the money, right?
Yeah.
You do comedy for the money. I pastor and do radio because it pays so well. I work 60 hours a week on the side just because I'm so bored.
Yeah, that's why. It has nothing to do with it. Yeah, it's funny because 2020 hit and all my shows canceled, and I was looking like, man, I want to make some money. I should teach. It's just a totally different mindset. But here's a true story to tell you kind of what's going on in the comedy world. I've got a dry bar comedy special that came out yesterday. And I had no idea that it was coming out. They didn't tell me. I knew they were getting close to releasing it. And they released it last night. And a friend of mine, Claiborne Cox, he's a Christian comedian, he texted me, but I didn't even see the text because I was delivering my Uber Eats delivery job that I'm doing right now. I was like, I'd love to talk about my huge, it's my second dry bar comedy special, and the first one did really well. I'd love to talk about that, but I'm Uber Eats driving now to provide for my family. So,
and I've got this Chick-fil-A to drop off like right now.
I had Taco Bell. I was like, let me deliver this 7-layer burrito, and then we can talk about how great I am at comedy.
So I asked you how did comedy become a? Or I didn't ask this question. You kind of answered it. I was going to ask you, how did comedy become a career choice for you? But it sounds like it wasn't really a choice. It was just something that you just kind of fell into by God's plan and design.
Yeah, God really opened the doors. And the first 3 years, I kept thinking I'll do it, and then people will figure out that I'm not a comedian, and then I'll go back to Texas and teach. And so I'm gonna tell you guys this is a really dumb story, but I bought a little starter home in Nashville. It's my 3rd year doing comedy, and I had that mindset that I wasn't a comedian. And I had a dry erase board up above my desk, and I was working on this bit about my dog, and I didn't think it was funny. And I stopped, and I was like, man, I don't even know why I'm working this hard on this stuff. It's not like I'm a comedian. And I looked up at my dry erase board, and it had all my show dates. And there were a ton of show dates for a comedian that wasn't really a comedian. And I looked at it, and I was like, and I don't know why that was my eye-opening moment, but that was my, the scales fell off my eyes where I was like, oh, this is what I'm doing. Like, I'm actually doing this. Like, I guess I was working so hard, and I was doing tours and, finding ways for tours to pay me. Like the Newsboys was my second tour. They would hire me, but most of the bands and stuff, they have to pay to be on the tour. So so to be opening for the Newsboys was a huge honor. But at the time, I didn't even know it. And because I didn't think that I was going to be a comedian, so they hired me to do merchandise. So the first 2 tours, I would do merchandise and then get up and open for them. And so, I guess I was just doing that for so long that I didn't really think like, oh, is this turning into a career or something? But I looked up at that dry erase board, and I had like my solo shows, and I was booked for 4 months out, and I was like, oh, maybe this is what God wants me to do. And that was kind of my eye-opening moment of, okay, well, yeah, let's try this and go full force on it.
Awesome. I want to kind of shift gears for a minute. Hook, Line, and Smiley. You are 53 episodes. Well, 53 when this drops. We're 52 right now on Wednesday night when me and you were talking. But we're 53 episodes when this drops. As long as you're on plan to drop 53 on Thursday, which I hope, because that's the first hour of my day is listening to that. I'm very professional. So I recorded it about 2 hours ago. So if I can get it edited tonight, then yes, it'll come out in the morning. So how did the podcast come to be? Let me set this up real quick a little more. I was a huge fan, and really I became a huge fan of you and a couple other guys, and I accidentally happened upon Potty Break. And for any of our listeners that have never heard that podcast, like I said earlier, rest in peace, Potty Break, because it tragically, suddenly, and without notice died. But its remains are still out in the podcast world, and it's great stuff. So go relive memories and listen to Potty Break. But that's kind of where I was exposed to a lot of Christian comedy that I had not been entirely aware of. Guys, I'd heard you, I'd seen a couple of YouTube videos, but I wasn't like a dedicated, quote, fanboy.
Right.
But that really exposed me, and I know podcasting has exploded over the last few years. So talk to me a little bit about how Hook, Line, and Smiley came to be and where that's headed, what your goals are.
Well, so we, I would be on Potty Break, usually once or twice a month. And I kept getting feedback from fans saying that when I was on, it was their favorite episodes. And, it was fun to do. It was a different kind of comedy. Tim Hawkins, it's his podcast. And Tim and I have been friends forever. And so we wouldn't plan anything out, but we'd get on the bus and we'd start recording, and, somebody would say something and we would look at each other like, okay, we know where to take this. We know how to make this funny. So it was great. It was kind of like a comedy improv group. And so I always liked doing it. And people kept telling me that I should do my own podcast, but I really thought, I'm doing so many other things. I have a thing called the Smiley Minute where I do the a funny look at the news today. And I've got all this other stuff going on, and I write for Focus on the Family. And I thought, I'm really not going to, I really don't have anything to add to the podcast world. And then one night, my wife and I, we were sitting out at the lake having a picnic, and we were talking about some, pretty serious stuff. We're a blended family. And so she has 2 kids. I have 3. And so we were kind of talking about, blending the kids and working with the kids and all that kind of stuff. But she was cracking me up and I was making her laugh. And we were talking about a very, very serious, situation, but it was funny. And I thought, like, I had this moment of like, this is what a podcast should be, talking about real life stuff, but also in a funny way, but that could also encourage other people. And so we started talking about, putting together a podcast. And so that's what we've done. We've put together Hook, Line, and Smiley, like you said, 52 episodes. It's weird because this episode, my wife is not going to be on it. It's going to be, I'm having Johnny W sit in, but they sound alike. So it'll still be good.
Do you have an unopened Johnny W DVD to be there present?
We addressed that at the beginning because that is a running gag on Potty Break, because we did have an unopened Johnny W DVD that sat up at the front of the bus. And I noticed after a couple of weeks that nobody was opening it. So I started working that into the Potty Break podcast. And then it became a running gag. Well, here's the deal. When Tim was taking a break and he was selling his buses and everything, I took the DVD, and I think God would understand. But I took the DVD, and so I have it somewhere, and I cannot find it because I would have opened it just so it would have been the first one,
God, this is great. Let me shift gears again. I want to kind of get into in our last little bit here. First of all, the email exchange that happened between us setting this up was fantastic. I wish I could share all the humor that was involved in that. One of the really cool things about your emails that I noticed is every email has a joke at the end of it, like a one-liner. And
oh yeah,
it's the best thing because I read this and I lost it. I was actually at work in my day job. I was walking into a business and I'm reading this email and I just busted laughing as I walked in the front door, and everyone looked at me like, what is wrong with you? And it said the best definition of a mixed blessing would be getting a kidney transplant from a bedwetter. And
yeah,
I didn't know if that was like a real life thing that came from, or if that was.
That was a real life thing. I was helping my son Xander. He needed a definition of a mixed blessing for his homework, and I was cooking dinner, and that just popped in my brain, and I was like, getting a kidney transplant from a bedwetter would be a mixed blessing. And so he put it, and he got a C, but I got a great joke out of it.
That's great. The other thing at the end of your email, and every email that I got from you, there was a scripture in that email.
Oh yeah.
And that scripture was John 3:30. And I had to go look that up to refresh myself, and it said, "He must increase, but I must decrease." And
right. You know the story behind it?
Remind us what the story is.
Okay, so John the Baptist was like the popular dude. Like, he was in the limelight. Everybody was coming to him. And he kept saying, hey, I'm not the most important person. I'm preparing the way. And then Jesus shows up, like was planned. And everybody started going to Jesus and his disciples. And so John's disciples got jealous and went to him and was like, why is everybody going to him? And John said, look, I told you the whole time I was not him. Like I told you I was sent to prepare the way. Mm-hmm. And so then he said that. He said, he must become greater, I must become less. Or there's several different, versions of it. But it basically means that, and this is how I want to live my life. Every day, wake up and have a little less of me and a little more Jesus.
That's great. Man, what the example and what the word of what we as Christians are supposed to be. Whether you're, making people laugh for a living, whether you're broadcasting for a living, whether you're in a pulpit like I am for a living, for a living.
That was funny. That was really. Can I use that?
Yeah, you can use that. Yeah. So I want to segue into this real quick. I've never really shared my story, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time with this. I'm going to spend like 30 seconds. I've never really shared a lot of my story, and I've been on this station for about a year and a half. But radio is extremely therapeutic for me because this is where I get to just talk, let things out. I'm in a studio by myself, so I get to make myself laugh sometimes and talk about, deep issues, get into scripture, with an audience. Real quickly, my story is, I got married when I was 20. Right after we got married, my wife was diagnosed with cancer. Mm. And, in February of 2014, I was 23 years old, and I was standing preaching my wife's funeral. And then a lot of things happened, kind of went through that time where I just went out of my head. I was a pastor at that time. I up and left, sold everything I owned, and did what everyone does when they're being smart and intelligent as an adult. I sold everything I owned, quit my job, left my ministry, moved to a different state, and moved in with my mom, because that's what smart people do. In that time period, I started long-distance dating who would become my wife later. So in September of 2015, we got married. We had 2 children, and then we had my daughter in November of 2017. I'm sorry, and then in February of 2018, when my daughter was 3 months old, she got RSV. So we ended up in a children's hospital in St. Louis. And while my wife was there with her, I was at home taking care of our son, going to work every day. My wife tragically had a heart-related issue happen, and she passed away in her vehicle at the hospital in the parking lot.
Oh, my goodness.
So now I'm 27 years old. I'm a single dad to a 3-month-old little girl that I know nothing about, and a 1.5-year-old boy. I'm a 2-time widower. I'm fully employed, working 2 jobs, and I'm a bivocational pastor. So after that, some time went by, and I got back into the dating scene. I'm not good at dating, but I got out there. And I found out that dating is difficult as a Christian. Dating's difficult for men regardless, because let's just face it, we all suck at it. But it was very awkward dating and being in ministry. Tell us a little bit about your story and how you got thrown back into the dating world.
Yeah. So I was married for almost 18 years, and met her at a Christian college, and it appeared that everything was great. And then I went home one day, and she told me that she was done. And I'm trying to be like where I'm not saying negative things, but anyway, she's now married to a very wealthy dude who used to be a really good friend of ours. So I guess that's the best way to put it. We used to vacation together all the time, and I don't know what they do now. He won't return my phone calls, but so we ended. I guess we ended the marriage because I didn't like her boyfriend. It's probably the best way to put it, and that's on me. That's on me. I liked him before. I should have just worked on the relationship. But yeah, she left, and I was a single dad with 3 boys. And I did, what you do. I tried to take care of them. We all moved in at your mom's place, because that's what you do. No, I'm just kidding.
It was weird sharing the same bedroom with you, though. That was awkward.
Yeah. Sorry about the snoring. I'm trying to work on that.
The bedwetting was the real issue, but anyway.
Yeah, well, it was a traumatic time to go through, but it was literally the floor just fell out from under me and the boys, and so yeah, we for a long time it was a really dark period of time, and forever. And I grew up in a Christian home, have great parents, and so forever I would travel around and I would tell my little jokes and make people laugh so they would listen to me, and then I'd share testimonies or scriptures, and I tell them that God could get them through anything. But I was kind of saying it from the mountaintop the whole time, because I really had a great life. And now I was wandering through, the desert, and I had a choice. Like, if what I said for 18 years, and I told people that God could get you through it, now it's time to listen to my own words. And so, I really tried to pour myself into reading the Bible, and I had friends. Everybody involved with the whole situation was at the same church, so it kind of, lines were drawn and stuff like that. I was really surprised that the people that I thought would have my back didn't, but then people that I didn't think would have my back showed up and started bringing food over to me and the boys, and sitting on the back porch and just praying with us and all that kind of stuff. And I really got to see God's comfort through that. But then my kids were, wanting me to date, and they were like, and the joke I tell on stage is like, it was so far from my mind because I was so faithful, and I'm faithful in any relationship. Like when I hang out with my pastor, I don't look at other pastors. So it was like, I really don't. I'm not like, oh, I wonder what his sermon's like. I bet he ends on time. But I literally so I started, I was kind of thrown in the dating world, and I found out like dating in your 40s, the first 3 dates is just looking for the crazy. Like it really is.
Oh,
it
that's
really
so true.
And like some of my friends, like they were like, you're gonna get fake photos, and girls are gonna say they're Christian and they're not gonna be. And I would show up, and the girl on her profile looked like Anne Hathaway, and I'd show up and they look like Anne passed away. It was like that kind of thing. Yeah, I had a lot of problems. I say this on stage. I don't say it now because I'm doing new stuff, but I would stop and get serious, and I would say, ladies, as a Christian man is trying to guard my heart and my eyes, if you dress for the kind of job you want, how about dressing for the kind of guy you say you want? Because I would get just bombarded. I would go out with people. The first lady I went out with, I don't know if this is too racy to air, but I went out with her. We kind of had a nice time. I talked a lot about my faith. She knew I was a Christian. And then I got home and she FaceTimed me, and I opened up the FaceTime, and I guess it was very warm in her apartment.
Oh no.
And I was like, and she professed to be a Christian. And, I did the right thing. I hung up an hour later, but, no, that's not true. That's not true. But that was kind of my baptism by fire of like, oh, this is not going to be fun. This is going to be, difficult. I really am going to have to guard myself.
Yeah. For me, it was the moment a friend of mine, I was on a couple of dating sites, the typicals, but I'm too broke and too cheap to pay for those. So I just tried to use the free ones, and Christian Mingle doesn't work long when you're doing it for free, the free version, because they want you to pay to talk to people.
Right.
But I had my profile built out, and I put my profile out there. It asks you to list all these details, and I did. And it was so weird. A friend of mine said, I want to see your profile. So she read through, and she's just started bursting out laughing. And she said, okay, you're being you, and you've laid out the details of who you are and what you expect, but you can't put this on the internet because no one's going to come to you. And I said, oh, so I have to lie about myself. And that was the day I deleted all of my online dating accounts. I was done. But then I met, I did on Facebook dating of all the places. One thing I can thank Zuckerberg for. I did meet my girlfriend on Facebook, and we've been in a long-term relationship. Things are going really well, but I found it awkward to be dating. So let me go back to this real fast. I know we're getting real close to time. I said that radio has kind of become a therapy outlet in my life. Ministry is great to be a therapy outlet if you're in ministry. It can be awesome if you're being ministered to. But if you're using your ministry to drown out the pain and to fill your time, it can become self-destructive. But
absolutely.
But we justify that by saying, well, it's my job. It's my calling. This is what God called me to do. No, God didn't call you to drown yourself in making this a job. He called you to benefit the kingdom with what you're doing. And you're not even benefiting yourself right now, much less anybody else. So how would you speak into that? Did comedy become a therapeutic outlet for you?
It did after a while. That's a great question. And absolutely what you said is true. Like if it's detrimental, it talks about putting on the full armor of God. And if you're not ready for battle, you don't need to be putting yourself on the battleground.
Yep.
And so it can be dangerous. It did become therapeutic later when I, really did start talking about everything and talking about how me and my boys got through everything. It became therapeutic. And what would happen is after the show, people would come up and they'd share their stories. And so I would feel like I was helping people, and that was nice. But I also was getting a lot of encouraging stories from people going, hey, I went through that 8 years ago, and, I was able to get through it. And now, the big message that I got from sharing my testimony on stage is that people would come up and tell me, like, there's still joy to be found in this world. So it's dark right now, but don't forget, like God can eventually shine light on you. And, that helped me. So it was therapeutic. But man, the first couple of shows, when I'd figured everything out, that what was going on, I remember the first show, speaking of Johnny W., we were doing a show together. I think it was in Indiana, and I'm standing up on stage and people are just dying laughing. And I was miserable inside. And at one point I told a joke and the room filled with laughter, went into an applause break. And I actually thought in my brain, how in the world can you be laughing when there's so much pain in this world? And like, I had that thought. I was almost resentful of people enjoying themselves all around me. And that's when I was like, oh, I need to deal with some stuff, because this is, it's dark.
Yeah.
It's dark.
I've been in that place where, people say, at funeral lines, and I'm sure they say it to you. I wanted to choke people after hearing this the 100th time, of hearing someone go, "Oh, you'll get through this. Just be strong." If someone said that to me, I just wanted to reach out and slap them in Jesus' name. Because when you're telling someone, "Oh, just be strong," you don't know what you're saying to someone when they're doing everything they can to keep themselves together in that moment.
Just to get through the day, just to get through the day. That I totally agree. Some of my friends didn't even know what to say. And so they would just mail me books. And I was like, thanks. Now I'm depressed and I have homework. This is great.
All right, Bob, you said Dry Bar Comedy Special 2. I did not. This is new info to me. This is like Hot Topic getting dropped. So tell us.
I thought you said you were a fan. So
oh, you said it dropped when?
It dropped yesterday, last night. But you know what?
I'm sorry.
You said you were a fan early on, but now that I know you lied on your dating profile, it doesn't really shock me.
I did not lie on my dating profile. I was overly honest in my dating profile. So Bob, tell the fans where they can find you, where you're located, all the interwebs things.
Well, your homepage is bobsmiley.com.
It is.
That's where everything is. You can find links to our we got a ding. That's so great. We got a ding. Oh, that's hilarious. That's such a great inside joke that hopefully will make listeners want to go figure out what that was. That was really good. But yeah, there's a link to our podcast, but we're on Hook, Line, and Smiley podcast is on Apple and Stitcher and Spotify and all that. I'm really active on my social media. My Instagram is Bob Smiley Comic. My Facebook is Bob Smiley Comedy. And I may already be kicked off of Twitter. I don't know. But if I'm not, it's Bob Smiley Comic. But I put out a Smiley Minute. I try to keep it right at 1 minute a day, which is a look at the news headlines that morning or the night before. So if you're just looking for a quick little video and a couple of laughs, people can check that out.
Awesome. Well, and everybody can catch Bob Smiley right here on the Vine on Late Night Laughter. That's about 11:30 every night, Monday through Friday, when we do our comedy bits for the evening, and we often feature Bob Smiley on Late Night Laughter, with the caveat that I have to plug bobsmiley.com every time we do that. That was like a dung right before the ding. That wasn't even a ding.
Yeah, we got to work in your ding, man.
Yeah, we got to work. All right, I think I got it. Bob, thanks so much, dude. Dude, this is a lot of fun. So make sure you check out bobsmiley.com or Hook, Line, and Smiley podcast wherever you get your podcasts. One more time, thank you so much to Bob Smiley for joining us tonight. I'm going to get out of here and work on my ding.